At a certain point, many people notice something unsettling about their social life. They can sit in a room full of people, participate in conversations, even laugh at the right moments, and yet feel completely alone. Not the loneliness of physical isolation, but something stranger, a sense of being separated by an invisible barrier, watching others connect with an ease that seems utterly foreign. They see friends forming around them, people bonding over shared interests, inside jokes developing, group chats buzzing with activity, and they remain somehow outside of it all. The interactions they do have feel performative, exhausting, like speaking a language they've memorized but never truly learned. And naturally, they become worried. They think, there must be something wrong with me. I'm too awkward, too different, too damaged. They read articles about social skills, force themselves to attend gatherings, practice conversation techniques, and yet the barrier remains. The friendships they manage to form feel thin, provisional, likely to dissolve the moment they stop making effort. But what if I told you that this experience, this inability to form the casual friendships that come so easily to others, might not be a deficit at all? What if it's pointing to something else entirely? You see, most of what we call friendship in modern life exists in what the philosopher Martin Heidegger called das Man, the impersonal they-self, the public mode of being where we lose ourselves in conformity and convention. In this mode, we interact not as unique individuals, but as interchangeable social units playing predetermined roles. We talk about acceptable topics in acceptable ways. We mirror each other's opinions, laugh at the same things, perform enthusiasm for experiences we're supposed to enjoy. The conversations follow scripts we've all internalized, complaining about work, discussing weekend plans, sharing opinions about popular shows, engaging in light gossip. And for most people, this feels natural, even pleasurable. It's connection without risk, belonging without exposure. This is what Heidegger was pointing out when he described how we flee from our authentic selves into the comforting anonymity of the crowd. We say, they say, and one does, instead of I think and I choose. We adopt the crowd's interpretations, the crowd's values, the crowd's way of being, because it relieves us of the burden of being ourselves. And friendship in this mode is easy because it requires nothing real from us. We're not truly meeting each other. We're performing familiar roles for familiar audiences. It's like being an actor in a play where everyone knows their lines, except you. Everyone else moves through the scenes smoothly, hitting their marks, delivering their dialogue with perfect timing. They seem genuinely happy doing it, genuinely connected to each other through the shared performance. But you've somehow never received the script. You watch, you try to improvise, you mimic what others do, but there's always this slight delay, this sense of not quite fitting, of responding a half beat too late or with slightly the wrong inflection. Not because you're a bad actor, but because you're not acting at all. You're trying to respond genuinely in a situation that doesn't call for genuine response. Once you see this pattern, once you recognize that most social connection happens in this realm of comfortable inauthenticity, the experience of not having friends takes on a different meaning. The person sitting alone at the party, struggling to participate in chit-chat, unable to generate enthusiasm for small talk, they're not necessarily socially deficient. They might be allergic to inauthenticity. Something in them refuses to perform the role, to put on the mask, to trade genuine presence for easy belonging. They can't do it, not because they lack skill, but because something deeper in them recoils from the falseness of it. And here's what nobody tells you. This creates a peculiar kind of suffering. Because you can't simply choose authenticity and have everything work out. The world is organized around das Man. Social structures, professional environments, even family gatherings often operate in this mode. To refuse to participate is to find yourself outside, looking in, wondering what's wrong with you, that you can't just be normal, just play along, just have simple friendships like everyone else. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you've spent your whole life in a valley where the air is thick and heavy, dense with moisture. Everyone there breathes this air without thinking about it. They've adapted to it. Their lungs have developed for it. It feels normal and natural to them. Then something happens, some shift in your biology or awareness, and suddenly this air that everyone else breathes comfortably feels suffocating to you. You gasp, you struggle, you can't get enough oxygen. You watch others breathing easily and you think there's something wrong with your lungs. You try breathing exercises, you force yourself to take deeper breaths of this heavy air, but it only makes things worse. What's actually happened is that you need different air. Not better air, not superior air, just different. Thinner, rarer, harder to find. The air of authentic encounter, genuine presence, real meeting between actual selves rather than social masks. This air exists, but it's not common. You can't breathe it at parties, at networking events, in most social situations designed for easy connection. And this period where you can't breathe the common air but haven't found the rare air, this period can be excruciating. This is what's happening when you find yourself unable to make friends in the conventional way. Your system has become sensitized to inauthenticity. The performative ease that makes casual friendship possible has become impossible for you. Not because you've lost some social skill, but because you've lost the ability to participate in the comforting fiction that these surface interactions constitute real connection. And this period can last quite a while. Years, even. You might go through phases of intense loneliness, of wondering if you're broken, of desperately trying to force yourself to be normal. You attend social events and feel like an alien. You watch others bond and feel a deep, aching isolation. You might have acquaintances, people you see regularly, but the friendships remain somehow provisional, never quite deepening into genuine intimacy. The usual response is to try desperately to fix yourself, to read books about charisma, to practice conversation techniques, to force yourself into social situations, to adopt the scripts that seem to work for others. Just be yourself, people say. But that's exactly what you can't stop doing. The problem isn't that you're not being yourself, it's that you are, and yourself doesn't fit the mold that makes easy friendship possible. But this doesn't work because you're trying to solve the wrong problem. You're treating your inability to participate in inauthentic connection as a deficit when it might be pointing you toward something else. The question isn't, how do I become better at shallow connection? The question is, where can I find the rare air I actually need to breathe? Now, I must warn you about something. What I'm about to describe isn't a solution that will suddenly fill your life with friends. It's not a technique that will make you popular or socially successful in the conventional sense. If anything, it might initially make the isolation feel more stark, because you're accepting rather than fighting against your need for genuine encounter. What happens is this: you stop trying to breathe the thick air. You stop forcing yourself to participate in conversations that feel empty. You stop pretending enthusiasm for activities you don't care about. You stop trying to be the person who can have easy, casual friendships. This feels dangerous. It feels like giving up, like resigning yourself to permanent isolation. Your mind screams that you're making things worse, that you need to try harder, that there must be something you can do to be normal. And you're right. It's not comfortable. What I'm describing isn't some pleasant revelation where suddenly everything makes sense and you feel at peace with your isolation. It's more like standing in a room and realizing that the door you've been trying to force open opens in the other direction. Or that it's not a door at all, but a window. and you need to approach it completely differently. Let me tell you about someone I knew, a woman who spent years trying to understand why she couldn't maintain friendships. She could make initial connections, people seemed to like her, but the friendships never seemed to deepen. They'd reach a certain level, and then just stay there, cordial but distant, until eventually they'd fade away. She blamed herself. Too quiet, too intense, too different. She forced herself to be more outgoing, to initiate more, to be the kind of friend she thought people wanted. Then something happened. Not dramatic, not sudden. She accepted a job that required a lot of solitude. And in that solitude, away from the constant pressure to perform socially, something shifted. She stopped trying. She stopped forcing conversations, stopped making effort to maintain friendships that felt hollow, stopped pretending to be someone who could do small talk and casual hangouts. And for a while, she was very alone. Actually alone. Not just feeling alone in crowds. And it was hard. There were moments of deep loneliness, of wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake, if she should have kept trying to be normal. But there was also, gradually, a kind of relief. Like she'd been holding her breath for years and finally allowed herself to exhale. One day she was sitting in a park, just sitting, not trying to be anywhere or do anything, and someone sat down next to her. They didn't speak at first. They just sat there, and there was something in the quality of their presence, the way they weren't performing or expecting or trying to fill the silence. After a while they started talking, and it wasn't small talk. It was just two people actually saying what they thought, responding to what the other actually said rather than to what they were supposed to say. The conversation lasted hours and felt like minutes. That friendship deepened. Not because she'd learned better social skills, but because she'd stopped trying to force connection and allowed genuine meeting to occur. She met others too, not many, not in quick succession, but occasionally, in unexpected places. They were usually people who also seemed slightly outside the normal social current. People who also couldn't quite manage the easy authenticity of casual friendship. And the connections, when they formed, were different, deeper, more rare, more real. What she discovered wasn't a technique for making friends. It was more like a recognition that the friendships she was capable of weren't the friendships that form easily at parties or through regular social activities. They required a different space, a different pace, a different kind of meeting. Not better, not superior, but different. And trying to force herself to form conventional friendships was like trying to grow orchids in desert soil. It wasn't a matter of trying harder. It was a matter of finding the right environment. This is what Heidegger meant when he talked about authentic being with others, Mitsein, in its genuine form. It's not about isolation or refusing all connection. It's about refusing false connection in favor of the possibility of genuine encounter. And genuine encounter can't be manufactured or forced. It requires that you show up as yourself, without script or mask, and wait for others who can meet you there. Here's what this looks like in practice, though I hesitate to call it practice because it's really more like a way of being. You stop measuring your social life against normal standards. You stop counting friends or comparing yourself to people who have large social circles. You recognize that you're looking for something different, something rarer, and you adjust your expectations accordingly. You don't avoid all social situations, but you also don't force yourself into ones that feel fundamentally wrong. If you're at a gathering, and the conversation is all surface, you don't torture yourself trying to participate enthusiastically. You might leave early. You might stand quietly at the edge. You might find one person who also seems slightly displaced and have an actual conversation with them while everyone else does the group thing. You become okay with long periods of solitude. Not resigned to it, not suffering through it, but actually okay with it. Because you've recognized that alone is better than fake connected, that silence is better than empty chatter, that your own company is better than performing for an audience that isn't really seeing you anyway. And you watch. You observe the quality of interactions. You notice when someone drops the mask, even briefly, even in small ways. You notice the people who also seem slightly out of step with the social script. You notice when a conversation shifts from performance to genuine exchange. And when you notice these things, you're present for them. You respond, you engage, you allow the possibility of real meeting. And most importantly, you stop trying to fix yourself. You stop treating your inability to make casual friends as a problem to be solved. You stop reading articles about how to be more likable or charismatic or socially successful. Not because you've given up, but because you've recognized that you're not broken. You're just looking for different air. And the fact that you can't breathe the common air isn't a deficiency. It's information about what you actually need. Paradoxically, it's only when you stop trying to force conventional friendships that genuine ones become possible. Because you're no longer performing, no longer trying to be someone you're not, no longer pretending to find fulfillment in connections that leave you empty. You're available for actual encounter, and actual encounter requires that both people show up without masks. This doesn't mean you'll suddenly have lots of friends. You might not. You might have 1 or 2 deep friendships instead of 20 casual ones. You might go long periods with no close friends at all, and then suddenly meet someone who gets it, who can meet you in that rare air you need to breathe. The loneliness doesn't disappear, but its quality changes. It becomes less like a desperate isolation and more like a waiting, a being available for genuine connection when it appears. And here's the strange thing that Heidegger understood. This authentic solitude, this refusal to lose yourself in Das Man, is actually closer to genuine being with others than most of what passes for friendship. Because when you do connect with someone from this place, when 2 people meet without masks or scripts, something real happens. Not just pleasant social interaction, but genuine encounter. 2 actual people actually meeting. Perhaps the reason you can't make friends the normal way, why casual connections feel impossible, why you feel isolated in crowds, is that you've already outgrown Das Man. Not because you're better than others, not because you're more evolved or enlightened, but because something in your makeup, your sensitivity, your particular way of being has made you allergic to inauthentic connection. You can't unknow what you know, can't unfeel what you feel, can't force yourself back into a mode of being you've already left behind. And then you're thrown back on something more fundamental. Not the easy belonging of the crowd, not the comfortable anonymity of conventional social life, but the possibility of genuine encounter, of actually meeting another person in that space beyond roles and scripts. It's rarer. It's harder to find. It requires more patience, more solitude, more tolerance for uncertainty. But it's not nothing. It's everything that matters. You just forgot for a while that this is what you were looking for.